If you are a C Sharp or a .NET developer, I am 100% sure Blazor has been one of your very first choice with your front-end development. And joining us today is Jose, who's a Microsoft MVP and a DevExpress MVP, who's gonna share 5 incredible architectural tips for Blazor that's gonna help you in your development of Blazor projects. Let's bring him in. Hi, Jose. Welcome to the Dash of .NET. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Simon, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here, and every opportunity we get to talk about Blazor is yours.
Yeah, I really love it. I know you also love it. So let's get started. Tell us about the 5 proven Blazor architecture tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm ready. I have my Blazor mug, so let's get started. So to start talking about Blazor, if you go and search the web, there is a lot of how to, like a lot of how to do this tutorial, a lot of how to create. And we all know all basic new file project with the counter, with the fetch data. So I thought that we should go a little more in depth about the architectural tip. I know that a lot of people already know how to work with Blazor, how to do a small app, how to do like they are already working on them. But what happens when your app is already complete? When you're trying to do something more advanced, you're trying to do dynamic components. Here is where architecture gets really important because you need to make sure that your app is scaled, your app is reliable, your app is fast. So let's do a quick rundown of Blazor architecture. Basically, we have two hosting models, WebAssembly and server. Without going too in depth, it's simple. WebAssembly downloads everything from the browser. Server has an open connection that through SignalR, you get some communication there. And basically, the first thing that happens when you put the URL in your browser is the JavaScript client gets downloaded to your browser. And then from there, that JavaScript client is the Blazor server that says, hey, what is my first page? And start working from there. In Blazor WebAssembly is different because all the DLLs, the runtime, everything gets to the browser, and then you can execute it there. So you have these two hosting models that are really useful. The most important part that you have to think here is Blazor server. You're the one who's paying for the processing. Everything is in your server. Blazor WebAssembly, everything is in your user's computer, in your user laptop, your user hardware. So just to quickly see this in action, in Blazor server, you see here the binary messages that are being sent through SignalR service all the time, back and forward. And you can even, this is not meant to be readable. This is a binary message, but you can even see font way style here. And you can also, if you start going through that line, you will see things like on render completed and like some type of the life cycle of the component. So first architecture tip, and let's go straight to it. The Microsoft thing, and one of the benefits of being a Microsoft MVP is that you get in those product group meetings where I know all of those are through NDA, but we're not sharing anything private here. Basically, like there is no other winner than the app service. We have deployed Blazor apps in our IIS service, in our Linux service, in our own hardware, but basically there is no other winner than app service. And it's not even close. The most hosted app in the app service for Blazor is basically the app service. And it's really interesting because basically the app service is that web apps and API in the cloud that are fully managed service that you have built-in CI/CD. And if for like enterprise, you have support for built-in network and isolated and dedicated environment. Is that something that you need for security and compliance standard? So basically, the app service is the go-to for Blazor applications. And when you have your Blazor application hosted an app service, there are a couple of things that you need to take into account because most of everyone start with a free tier and they develop their application there. And then when they are trying to move, they forgot to set some settings that are really important. The most important to start with is the 64 bits. Most everyone, when they do the free tier, it goes directly to 32 bits. So you need to make sure that you come here, change it to 64 bits because you will need that for the memory. Remember, everything that you're seeing in the screen in Blazor is on memory. And if you're using Blazor server, that memory is on your server and that can add up. That's one of the main bottlenecks for scalability. The .NET version, of course, you can choose the latest long-term support. With .NET 6, .NET 5, and so on, we have not seen a really big improvement in the .NET version, but definitely I think with .NET 8 that will change here. WebSockets have to be on. Make sure WebSockets is on. If you don't have WebSockets on, this will the file to long polling. Long polling will consume more resources, and it will be asking, hey, do you have something for me to the server? Do you have something to me to the server? So it will not be the most efficient way. And of course, AR affinity, if you are like having more than one instance, so you make sure those sticky sessions are in place, and we'll talk about that. Now, this is the configuration that you cannot miss. There are a few other things that we can discuss about app insights, about some monitoring and so on, but you cannot. 64-bit WebSocket nodes. Don't forget about those configuration. Of course, if you are in the world of app services, you have everything that you need, from your artifacts to your testing to your deploying, continuous building, continuous CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and everything there that you need. You can have your several slopes, you can have your approval, your source control flow, everything you need right there, because DevOps make it really easy to take your app service and do the whole development cycle. Now, second tip, dependency injection and memory management. And right here is important to talk about the service lifetime. So we have 3 service lifetime that is transient. Every time that you call that service, you will get a new instance. A scope, this every time that you call the scope service, you will get a new instance if it's another session. If it's basically a different user. And singleton, everyone will get the same instance. Now, we have to be really careful here, because, for example, in Blazor WebAssembly, it's not a Blazor server. You have everything running on your server. All the memory is on your server, but as we discussed on Blazor WebAssembly, everything gets to your own computer, to the user computer, to the hardware of the user. So what does that mean? That if you have a singleton that is supposed to be the single instance for everyone in Blazor WebAssembly, that will work as a scope as well. And a scope will work as a singleton, because everything is happening in just that instance. So let's say that you have 10 users using your application. There is 10 instances of your application in each of your computers, in each of your users' laptop, in each of your user computer, and in each of your user hardware. And we don't talk about just computer here. You can run Blazor basically everywhere. Right now, you can run in a Raspberry Pi. And this is really important to understand, because that difference of service lifetime will make a huge impact in the memory management of your application. Transient will be the same across the board. Every time you call it, will be a new instance. Now, the second part is like we need to know that if you're using Blazor server, the SignalR is a really big part of it. So we have a library. SignalR, just a quick rundown, is the library for adding real-time functionality to the application. And why that is important is because you have some event like the counter in your browser, and that actually like the fetch data, because the counter is happening right there, and that basically sends that to the server. The server does some processing, have a copy of your DOM, compare the copy of your DOM, and send back just the markup that changed. So it's really, really efficient, and it only sends what it needs. Now, the important part here is that we need to do server code push. The server needs to push. It doesn't have to wait, because if we know HTTP, basically after you call the server, it gets disconnected. So that's it. If you do Ajax, you have some processing in the background, but it's still not the most efficient, and it still have to be initiated. Now, the server code push, you have an open, and you can send it. And there are several things for that. SignalR take care of that, and you have a WebSocket, event source for every frame, long polling, and as we talk about the app service default to long polling. But WebSocket is the one who actually have a bidirectional persistent connection, multi-user, full duplex, and asynchronous. So we have everything we need. And if you see, we can be sending data and receiving data at the same time. So that takes us to the part that when you have more than one instance of your server, you will need to have those sticky sessions. That basically what it does is make sure that your user is redirected to the server that it has been before. Meaning that if you have a user client 1 that already connects to server 1, the next time that client 1 connects, we need to know where to send it, because if you send it to server 2 or to server 3, those one will have no idea of the state of that client. So basically, that's the idea of sticky sessions here, and we need to be able to handle that. And with app services, it makes it really easy, and with I will discuss the next tip will be even better. So also keep in mind TCP connection. We have a limit on TCP connection on server, and that is not only for our app. It's shared with every app that we have available in that server. So the third one will be Azure SignalR service. Azure SignalR service is a great service. That the first thing that I want to mention is not by the number of users that are connecting to the Azure SignalR service, is by the number of messages being shared between those users. So you can have a lot of users that if your message between your users and your server doesn't increase, your Azure SignalR service is not going to need to scale. Not only that, Azure SignalR service by default, it already knows where to send your users, where to redirect your users. So it handles all that for you. And as a really big bonus, the Azure SignalR service take loads at your CPU. So all that SignalR processing that are happening in your server, you can take it away. So if you're using Blazor server and you're going to start using more than one instance, definitely recommend using the Azure SignalR service. I mentioning here that even if you don't have more than one instance, the Azure SignalR service take even some loads from the CPU. So it's a win-win. Now, the other, I will say, really good thing to keep in account, and we'll see this a little bit of code here, is that in Blazor server, we have the circuit handler. So basically, we have every connection, every WebSocket is a circuit that basically handles the states, and it keeps that connection open for us. But sometimes we need to customize it, which will be able to see when a client, a user is disconnected, when it is connected, and also change the option, because by default we have 3 minutes that we are holding the memory of the sessions. And we also have hope options, because the great thing is, like, even if you don't see the SignalR in your project, you will definitely have access to modify the hope that is happening, and even piggyback on them and do anything you need. So in this sequence manager, let's quickly see something. When we create a new Blazor server project, we basically only have this: add server Blazor, and that's it. There is nothing else that we see from there. But you can get inside, and you can get here, and you see circuit options, and start modifying those options. And basically, you can say, okay, what will be the retention period that by default you see here is 3 minutes, or let me know what is the call timeout for the GS interrupt. And you can even modify the hop options. So we can say, okay, what is the client timeout interval? Please enable detail errors, handshakes, and all of those options are at your disposal. And if we also connect this to all of those configurations that we need for example, App Insight, we will have a really good performance in our app. And for that one, we can say here that we have a SQL handler, and that SQL handler has some methods. We have on circuit open a sync, on connection up, on connection close, on connection down. So all of those methods allows you to hook into them and do some type of metrics monitoring, and then that way we know how many concurrent users we have. We know how many have been disconnecting. We can do things when those amount of circuits is getting to a big number, and we know. And you can actually review all the implementation here, because it's a really interesting place where we can actually intersect and do our own things. So basically, that will be the other one about circuit management, because I think that one is really important in that regard. Now, this is one of my favorite, Blazor component. So Blazor has the concept of render fragment and render tree. So basically, what I like about this is, if you see, we have a way to dynamically open elements, open components, open attributes, and add all of this. And why this is important? Because a lot of times we don't know what we're going to be using. So sometimes the child content is enough, but sometimes we can do really interesting thing by using a render fragment, by using the builder tree. And if you see, for example, in this builder render tree method, we basically add an attribute, and we can see how we open the element and add the attribute class menu. And this is what it translates to. So this is the markup that is coming. So this is one of the tips that I think that when you have to be doing dynamic things, it will bring you the most versatility, because you can have a generic method that it can construct different UI, and you can open any element, pasar a markup as a template, and do some really, really, really nice things. Now, why is this also important? Because you can then put this Blazor component in a NuGet package through a Razor class library and reuse it everywhere. And if you know, right now, Blazor, even in the Microsoft Team templates, is the default, meaning that if you have a NuGet package with a Razor class library that has your components, you can reuse it across Blazor Server, Blazor WebAssembly, Maui Blazor, or anywhere you are using a Blazor application. So think about the possibilities here. So we have Blazor WebAssembly, Blazor Server. We can reuse your components. And with that one, if we come back to the architecture, sometimes we're going to be using Blazor Server. That is really good when you're doing some type of Linux business application that you can connect directly, because you have the full runtime of the .NET in your server. In Blazor WebAssembly, you are more constrained. But if you think there are places where you will want to take advantage of the Blazor server architecture, and there are places that you will want to take advantage of the Blazor WebAssembly architecture. If you're doing a lot of processing that you need to send to the user hardware to handle, you can use Blazor WebAssembly. So you're doing some more secure confidential things, you can use Blazor server that way. And if you know, as soon as you try to do file new project in Blazor WebAssembly, you know, you have this checkbox that ASP.NET Core hosted, that it will create a middle tier API. That basically what you do. If you need to connect to the database, you do it through there. If you need to handle any type of secrets, connection string, and so on, you need a middle tier API. So we cannot connect directly to the browser for security reasons. But what if you want to switch in runtime from WebAssembly to Blazor Server, to have a page in Blazor WebAssembly, have another page in Blazor Server? Take advantage of what they both offer, because they both have their advantage. So Octane has been doing this for a while. Octane is a really, really interesting project that you guys should take a look about how you can create dynamic applications with Blazor. But the idea here is .NET 8 now is coming with Blazor 9. So if you architecture your application right, with everything that we have discussed, and you have a middle tier API, and you have your Blazor component in NuGet Razor Class library, with Blazor Native, you can basically mix that and use a part of your application in Blazor Server, the other part in Blazor WebAssembly, and it's really, really excited to see how can you have a page where you see, and you go to network, you see the WebSocket, and you say, okay, this is Blazor Server, and then there is no runtime downloaded in your browser. If you change the page, you'll see how in this page we're using Blazor WebAssembly, and we can have that versatility and reuse everything that we need there. Now, I know that we only say 5, but I think that it's important to have a bonus, that is the entity framework. The recommended approach to create an EODB context with Blazor is to use a factory. If you have seen there is an issue with the Blazor entity framework, and you can take a look at that link, where basically the DB context was passed as a scope, and they were having some issues there. So the recommended factory here is what we're seeing here, is as the DB context factory to take care of that. Because yeah, if you think about entity framework and Blazor, we always think about Blazor server. But now with Blazor WebAssembly and SQLite, you can actually connect directly to the SQLite with entity framework in the browser. So it's just amazing to see that. And let me see if I can show you something here quickly in the meantime. Show it at the end, and then a few things that we haven't mentioned that I think that are important. Testing, unit testing with the units is the go-to right now, and of course, I still automated UI testing with Selenium would be the best way to go, and definitely that would be a whole talk by itself. I wanted to show this because I think that it will be okay. I have it here. Okay, so we also have a same framework with entity framework that is using the is using the SQLite, right? This is what I wanted. The SQLite with a Blazor WebAssembly. And it will be a quick demonstration, but if you see right here, I can add a client node, and this is actually using entity framework core with SQLite. And that client node here puts some data, and then I can actually add another client node. And you can see all of this is another table, and all of this is SQL with entity framework core. And you can actually see what is happening there. You can see when we're going to synchronize the command for the different database, SQL, Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server. So this is the power that you have right now with Entity Framework and SQLite. All of this is happening in your browser. If you refresh, everything is gone. And you can do a lot of awesome things in that regard. Now, coming in .NET 8, there is a lot of great things coming, especially that Blazor United about we able to use both web hosting at the same time and multi-threading and authentication stack, compression, and a lot of other great things. So please don't miss that, especially the productivity quick grid, because that will allow you to do a lot of great things that come out of the box without any third vendor package. Because we started with the app service, and I think that this is one of the most important concept, because that's what everyone is using. I think that if just to mention, if you're going to go use a bad service, go to premium, any premium B3, because they have twice the power and half the cost, and your app will be running smoothly. And I started using before with premium B2, and as soon as I switched to B3, my cost like went down right away, and my app started behaving even better. And that's basically it. Thanks for joining, and I'm really excited to be discussing all of this. Right here, you have my email, my Twitter. Any questions, any comment, please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely great, Jose. Azure App Services, dependency injection, Azure SignalR, circuit management, Blazor components, EF code, testing, and he also had a demo in just about 20 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the best video if you want to learn about not 5 or 6 or 7, but a lot of about Blazor architectural stuff. And this was not level 100 as we were talking about. This was level 200, 300, and some of the tips are also level 400. So as Jose said in the beginning, if you want to learn about this architectural stuff, this video is recorded. You can always go back and rewatch it, and follow the gentleman on Twitter. JJ Column B, is that how we say it? Jose, before we wrap up this video, any final thing you want to plug in and tell to the audience?
Yeah, no, basically what I always say, there is a huge power in community. So please reach out. Like a lot of time we see someone, or we read an article or someone, we have a question, and don't reach out thinking they will not answer. You will be surprised. Most of the community, they will answer. They will be happy to help you. So please go for it.
Yeah, and you will find Jose's details in the video description, and also you'll find the next video coming up somewhere over here. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jose, and we'll see you in the next video. Ta-da, bye-bye.
Thank you, Simon.